Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I am Jake Bennett.
and welcome to episode 90 of the North Meets South Web podcast.
Chicka chicka Janet. I think it's like tradition now that I have to do that.
Every
I wonder if I
time.
get the right key. I'm gonna have to think if I'm gonna have to listen to this one and see if I got the right key. Like if I maybe I have like perfect pitch.
Maybe.
Hey,
I
what do you
find it
think?
unlikely.
What do you think of my floppy hair here?
It's
You like that?
looking all right. It's
Look
like,
look how short it is over here. Look how crazy this is. It's like
my barber refuses to go that short. He's like, if I cut it that short, you're gonna look bald. So I'm like, all right, whatever. You know what you're doing.
yeah.
The
Dude,
guy's
I'm like
70.
I'm cheap, and so I get my hair cut short, really short. I actually like the way it looks too, but it's fine. Yeah.
You have to have a certain shape
a
head. If your head is not of a certain shape, then shaving it doesn't really work. And when you've got dark hair, typically the dark looks okay against the light, whereas when you've got light hair like me, it's just...
It looks like you're bald. Yeah, right. I know. With my sons, they've both got like blonde hair, and so when they get haircuts, I can't do that because they're like the barber says same thing. They're like, well, we can, but they're gonna look like they have no hair for 3 weeks. So anyway, yeah. So I go to zero. I go a zero guard all the way down here, and they don't. They go like a 1. So
yeah, I'm only allowed to go to like a 0.5 at most, and then I get yelled at if I... And sometimes I ask for a 0, and he just does a 0.5 anyway. I'm like, all right, try to get away with it.
I know better than you.
Yeah,
I know better.
I tried to ask you to do
funny.
it anyway, and you said no. So I'm like, it's summer, just cut it real short for me, so I don't have to worry about this.
See, it's winter here, and it has been freaking ridiculous winter. Like I have not seen this much snow.
So cold that
maybe
Texas
you've heard about
over.
the power outages in Texas. Yeah, right. I mean, it's crazy what's going on down there. Insane.
It's wild.
But it's been insane in Illinois too. Like I can't remember a time where it's been this cold for this long. It's kind of been like it. It reminds me of when I lived in Michigan. It was like this all the time in Michigan. Freezing cold all the time, snow up to your knees all the time. But it's like I've gotten lazy over the years, and so like when it snows in Illinois, I'm kind of like do I shovel my driveway? I'm like like it'll probably warm up tomorrow and it'll be gone. No worries. You know what I mean? Like so we left for like a day and a half to go stay at this hotel thing for a couple days, for like literally a night, just to get the kids out of the house. They were going crazy because it's been like we haven't been able to do anything except for just be inside. And so I came back, and it was like 8:30 at night, and we went to pull into the driveway, and the snow had been plowed off the roads that night, and it was so high that I couldn't get the van in the driveway. So I had to get out, go open my garage, shovel a path for my family to get in. Like that's ridiculous. I had to shovel a path through the snow so my family could get in the house. And then I spent the remainder of the night, like not the remainder of the night, probably the next 40 minutes, shoveling our driveway so I could pull the van in. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it was Wes Boz maybe that was talking about it. He got like one of those leaf blowers and just used that instead.
That's interesting.
And just like blow the snow out of the way, because that's what you need. Like it's obviously going to snow again.
Because they have like snow blowers. Was it a snow blower or was it like a leaf blower?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you know what a snow blower is, Michael?
Do
you guys have snow blowers? Do you guys have snow blowers in Australia?
No, climate change isn't quite that bad yet, but I'm sure in a few years we'll have to.
When you say leaf blower, right? When you say leaf blower, I think you mean snow blower. It's similar. I mean, like it's like a big machine that goes in. It has an auger and it shoots out snow. Yeah. I borrowed one from one of my buddies to get the rest of my garage, or not my garage, the rest of my driveway done, because it would have been a nightmare. Anyway, that's what's going on here. And so, yes, my haircut feels very cold because it is, but it's okay. It's no worse.
Yeah. You get it cut and then you put a beanie on it and to keep your head warm because it's so cold. And then you don't want to take the beanie off because, you're going to have hat hair or beanie hair. And then kind of defeats the purpose getting the whole haircut in the first place.
Absolutely. That's correct. Yep. So you hit the nail on the head. So now I just suffer. I just suffer in silence. I don't put a beanie on. I don't do that. I just do my hair and walk out and hope the car is, warm by the time I get out there after starting it in the morning. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what's been going on here in Illinois. How are things over there in Aussie land? I've not heard anything about... Actually, you know what? I did hear something the other day about a guy from Brisbane. He called it Brizzy. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, we like to abbreviate and shorten things. We don't have time for full words. But yeah, Brizzy.
Yeah,
Brizzy's the one.
So you just call it Brizzy? You guys call it Brizzy?
Bris Vegas. It's for some reason they call
Bris
Bris Vegas. There's
Vegas.
no casinos there, so I don't know why they call it Bris Vegas. But
Oh, that's
Queenslanders
funny.
are off their rocker.
Okay, so that's all I've heard about Australia
Yeah.
recently. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, I do have some interesting, maybe interesting, some things I've just been thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
we could talk about today, if you care to, and you can add some items to the list here if you'd like to.
Yeah. You
But
kick us off, because the last few weeks has been lots of me talking about my new
oh
job,
yeah,
and my boss
I'm,
listens to this show, and he's like,
oh
and
really?
during the week he's like, well, we better give you something to do, otherwise you're gonna have no content for your podcast. You have nothing to complain about.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Well, so like, actually, you know what? I mean, I really enjoy hearing about your work. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of my favorite parts of the show. Do you have anything to tell us real quick before I jump into some of these other topics? Like anything that's been going on that you want to talk about real fast
Yeah.
with your job?
Sure. This was probably the highlight of my week, was discovering that our public website is it's old, right? It looks fine. It's well designed. There's a few responses. So I was looking at it to fix up a few responsive things and a couple of accessibility issues that crept up and things like that. So it's not too bad. And I was trying to find a way to like ninja Tailwind in there, and the website was built some time ago, and just make changes and add things and whatever else as needed as you go on, as you do. But there's no build step, there's no webpack, there's no
Yep.
whatever the thing from before was that we were using, that Jeffrey said was the thing we should use.
Guzzle.
Yes,
I
there
think.
was none of was it, no, not Guzzle. Guzzle was the HTTP thing. There was something else before, from before webpack.
Oh, sorry, not Guzzle.
Gulp.
Grunt. Gulp. Thank you.
Yeah. So, none of that. There's just like this rollup.php file, and all it does is it concatenates a whole bunch of so it's like file underscore get underscore contents, style.css dot slash n, and then like the next thing, and it's all just like concatenated together. So in the development environment, it just like does this file get contents on every single page load.
Oh my gosh.
In production, it obviously generates a style.css, and that's just used everywhere. So I thought that was kind of funny. And so I
That is funny.
added Tailwind. There was some complaints that like when I submitted some code a couple of weeks ago, just as a like build this thing throwaway kind of project, and I included Tailwind in it, and I just had a dev build in there. So I sent that across with
Right.
it's 190,000 lines of code, and they're like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "Well, in production, you wouldn't ship 190,000 lines of CSS at 3.5 meg. You would shove it through Purge, and you would end up with like 2 kilobytes of
Like
CSS
nothing.
with what you're
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
using." So, but I went through a couple of iterations. I'm like, okay, how can I redo this website in such a way that it's a little bit nicer to maintain, so we're not duplicating, or the standard stuff that you go through with Tailwind, that you want to extract components for like common bits and pieces, so you're not having to update the CSS, the Tailwind classes and all of that. So I had to play around with Veet, the Vue sort of development server buildy thing, which is kind of nice once we figure out how to use it. So there's when you install it, or you create a new Veet app, you've got the option of doing vanilla, sort of just JavaScript CSS, and so that gives you an index.html, and you just do what you need to do in there, and then you can hook in Tailwind CSS to that, and had to play around with that for a little bit. And then that wasn't quite what I wanted, because I needed to have some reusable components for feature panels and things like that are reused across the site. So then I used the Vue variant of Veet, and then I remembered that I don't really remember much Vue, and it's been a while since I've done any, so I ended up just falling back to Laravel and doing some Blade components there, because that was enough. And really, it was just so that I could scaffold out the site, essentially rebuild the site using Tailwind, as we've seen Adam do with arbitrary sites over and over again using Tailwind, and just build out the website basically, and then copy and paste what I need in there.
Right.
A tricky thing that I have been doing is, because they've got existing CSS and some of the names collide with stuff that's in Tailwind, I have to prefix it. And so always fighting with muscle memory to add the prefix when I type the class. So I thought that roll up thing was amusing way of doing things. Kind of the, let's not pull in NPM and anything off the shelf. Let's do our own, quick and dirty thing, which works fine, I suppose.
pragmatism wins the day, right? I mean, like it's like, okay, what's the simplest way I can do this? Well, I know file get contents, and I can like do this in like probably 3 minutes. Let's just do that. And then the
Mhm.
next person came along and was like, well, I guess this is how we're doing it, and just added their additional JavaScript thing. And then they're like,
Mhm.
somebody's like, we should probably cache this. And so now they cache it. Yeah, it's funny, man.
Mhm.
And like you said, like, just it's like they're running this business using this stuff. Like it's all held together with duct tape and bubble gum. I mean, but literally, like there's so many. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just works sometimes.
Yep.
So
While
we
you're
had that
talking
similar.
offline,
We
there
had a
was a tweet about this somewhere that I'll see if I can locate.
yeah. So we had a similar problem with Tailwind where we had to use a prefix on everything, but it worked great. It was totally fine, no big
Mm.
deal, right? We just TW dash whatever, and that got around all the problems. The resets are a little bit. I think they're optional, right? The resets, the Tailwind resets that they put on things, right, to kind of like remove default margin and
Yeah.
padding and things like that. But so I mean that sort of can mess up other styles that are embedded in other style sheets as well. If there is like
Mhm.
a default, like hey, like in a raw paragraph tag anywhere, just go ahead and give a margin bottom of 5 pixels to that or something, right? That happens too. So,
Yeah.
whatever. Like most of the time it works fine, but yeah, there are some exceptions. So, anyway, so tell me about Veet. What is Veet?
So Veet is a vit.vue.js.org. No,
I've
Veet.js.dev.
heard of it. I've never used it.
Veet.js.dev. It's next generation front end tooling. So it's like if you're using that thing with the thing that you use all the time, browser sync. So it does that instant
Okay.
refresh thing, but it's like instant. It uses ES modules, so there's no bundling. It doesn't do any of that stuff. It does hot module replacement, has out of the box support for TypeScript, JSX, CSS, and uses rollup for its builds. So it's super super fast to do that. And so I had that running with Sizzy and just like all of the tailwind
Sizzy.
breakpoints and
Yeah,
just
love that.
you know what broke, where did it break, fix it, refresh everything, like, and it's a really nice tool for that. And it was just I've been hearing about it so much from Evan Yu, who's the creator of Vue.js, has been building this for some time, so he's been tweeting about it for a while, and the opportunity came up to play around with it. It's pretty nice if you're just building out static stuff. There's also Veet Press, which is a lighter sort of version of VuePress that was released a while ago,
Yeah, sure.
which I might look at if I ever find more than 5 minutes at a computer outside of work to redo my website, because I had a logo done up by Noemi, who works at Titan Code.
Titan.
Like, when was it? We had a pandemic last year, 2019. She did me up some artwork, like logos
I
for
remember that. Yeah,
branding and
that's
stuff.
right.
And I just haven't gotten around to doing anything with it for a couple of years. And obviously, before I can write another blog post on my website, I need to first redesign it from scratch in a completely different tool chains. So yeah.
Sure,
So
sure, of
but
course.
it's like, npx or something, create Veet, and it just like does its thing. It's super quick to get up and running, and it's just bang, it's there. So yeah, I might look at it. Obviously I don't want static pages for everything. I think VeetPress might be something I look at just to do pages, and then I can repurpose that Nova license for some other website, I guess, because Nova's probably a bit overkill for my personal blog, but it was one of those things. Like, I wasn't going to buy Laravel Spark, and then I bought the unlimited license because
Yep, because you never know. And it's like
someone's got
it's
to
gonna
pay
be.
for all of those Laravel employees that Taylor's got now, so it may as well be me.
I know, right? Yeah, we'll speak about that a little bit later with all the Laravel employees. Like they've got like Laircon Online is pretty much almost all Laravel
Mm.
employees this year.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that. It's just pretty like literally just recently announced.
yeah.
Like
I
a couple
mean,
like a day ago, maybe.
there's not really anyone hugely better positioned than like those people to talk about the deep technical stuff. So Laircon Online, if you
For
want
sure.
to check it out, they just launched the
It's like
website on
it's all
Friday.
Laravel internals, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all like deep dives into Laravel internals and like hyper technical stuff this year, which would be really exciting. So they've got Christoph Rumpel, Mohammed Saeed, Bobby Bowman, Caleb Porzio, Taylor speaking, Miguel Piedrafita, who will tweet at me that I have mispronounced his last name, Marcel and Nuno speaking. So it'll be interesting because they're talking about, deep dives into the queue, the service container, how the routing works, how broadcasting works, how the foundation component works. Caleb's going to do some stuff on Livewire and Alpine, and Nuno's going to talk about Artisan. So
Artisan. He was like talking today on Twitter. He was like, I'm pretty much going to rebuild it live.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Yeah, pretty cool.
And
I'm
looking
forward to it. It's going to be great. We're going to have a little viewing party as we usually try and do each year. So we'll just limit capacity if we need to, but it's not like we've ever had so much interest that it's like we'd have to like pack a room or rent someplace where we usually have quite a bit of space. But yeah, I have hopefully some of the regulars that come down each year from Chicago and up from St. Louis and all that stuff coming down to watch Laircon Online with us. That'll be good. Be a good time.
Definitely check out the website. It looks good.
And the site, I also wanted to say, the site looks incredible. Kaneko
and Flick Nelson did the illustrations, and Nick, I guess, built the website. Flick did the illustrations, and Kaneko, put the site together. Looks really really good. Spatterings and stuff on there. So
the illustrations look amazing.
I didn't realize that.
They look really really good.
Yeah, if you mouse over the illustration at the top of the page, it like wobbles. I didn't notice that because I've looked on the site.
What?
The illustration at the top of the page, if you move your mouse over it, it like shifts.
Really?
I hadn't noticed that. Because I'd only looked at that on my phone. It was the only place I'd looked at it up until now. So yeah, definitely check that out. Kudos to those lads for putting that together because it looks really cool. I bought my ticket.
And the dark mode looks awesome too.
Yeah, the dark mode gives you color.
Dark mode looks really really cool. Yep. It gives us like really awesome looking. It changes the icon at the top or the like the illustration at the top to be all funky, amazing, rad colors. It's pretty cool.
Yes.
So big shout out to those guys. Looks really really good. So I'm excited to attend to that again this year. It's always good, and I think it's like $30 a ticket, so it's totally worth it. You get a lot of value, a lot of value out of this.
And
so
it will take me like 3 months to watch all the videos, but I do look forward to that. So check that out.
Yeah.
I bought my ticket, and then Pingme has sponsored some. I bought some scholarship tickets, so we added 5 in there. So if you're a member of an underrepresented group, you can apply for those scholarship tickets. And of course, if you're in a position where you can or you do have the means, then please consider perhaps sponsoring some tickets for those who are unable to afford or are from parts of the world where $30 is a lot more money than what it is for, you and me, Jake. So check that out.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, so speaking of new websites and of your own website and all that goodness, I've recently decided, so this nonprofit that I help do some stuff for, they had their site redone in WordPress a couple of years ago. And they're already to the point where they're like, yeah, we're not doing this. Like this WordPress thing is just not working. Like it's, the promise of WordPress, and maybe the people they had do it just didn't do it right. And maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe.
But the promise of WordPress is like you can move everything around and like you can change anything you want to, and you can make your own content, new pages, and like blah 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 whatever. And it's like in actual practice, it's not that easy for people who are not developers, right? Like if you're a developer, maybe, right? But I feel like even if you're a developer, not so much, right? It's just like, or maybe it's just, again, it could just be that I'm not that familiar with WordPress or that I have like some stigma against it. But I don't know. I've just never come across a WordPress site that I was like, oh, this is so simple. Like everything is so easy on this. Like it's just so simple to do. And like I could hand this off to anybody and they could figure it out on their own without any help, right? Especially with any sort of complexity. If it's literally just a very simple blog, totally. Yeah, it makes sense. But like if there's any sort of like marketing page at all, like no, not happening unless you're using some really, really nice template, right? If you're using something that's already got all the sort of different things that you want to build and you're kind of stacking those up and doing it, great. But if you have like a custom design, if you have somebody like custom design it and then you develop that and throw that into WordPress, I feel like it's almost impossible to do. And again, maybe it's just that the people who built it didn't know what they were doing, but it's gotten to the point where they're like, we need something else. So I've been looking into Statamic,
Hmm.
and just kind of diving into it. Have you ever done anything with Statamic or had a lot of experience with it or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, the places that I've been at that have needed a website have kind of like they've already been established, so they're already WordPress. My last job was some custom, like it's just a whole bunch of HTML. That's literally static pages. So I've always like wanted to, but I just never had the time to dive into it. Maybe I should use that instead of Veet because it'll probably be easier for my back end focused
It probably
brain.
would. It probably would. And I mean, like, so Laravel News was just rebuilt on
Mm,
Statamic, and it's awesome and super fast,
mm,
really, really great. And talked to Eric a little bit about it. He seems like he's really happy with it. Yeah, there's like, as I've been reading through it, it just seems like some really, really well thought out stuff. And man, I'm telling you, like that design is like the design of the back end, the control panel is really tight, I guess is the only way I can describe it. Like it feels like everything is just really well done. It's just a crafted solution. So it feels really good. It feels very like comprehensive. It feels like you have everything you need and nothing you don't. Like
mm-hmm,
if you want to add more, you can, but it doesn't like assume that you need all sorts of crap out of the box.
mm,
And there's also this really good sort of like, I don't know if you'd call it a theme or what exactly you'd call it, called Peak,
mm-hmm.
Peak, I think, that just I think just recently came out. Laravel News actually has an article on it as well. I discovered it a couple days before the article came out, so got in touch with the author and was like, "Hey, dude, I might have some questions." He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, hit me up out here like on the Discord channel. They have a Discord channel as well." So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've kind of started looking into it. I honestly am still a tiny bit confused about how it all works. So it seems like you have like a couple options for deployment. Like it seems like you can compile everything down to a static site and just deploy it through like Netlify or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You could just literally say like, here's my Git repo, and Netlify supports PHP now. So you could just say like, you just have like a build step in there that builds out your site and then deploys it statically,
Mm-hmm.
and you're all set. No worries. Like, so you can build a static site using all your Laravel stuff and whatever. And when it deploys, it just spits out static pages, which is
Yeah.
great. But there's also things like if you need to be able to edit it like on the web instead of having to give access to the repo to somebody who might not be technically minded or know how to do like a commit or whatever, you have a control panel. And if you have a control panel, I think you can power the back end by some sort of database, right? Um, and then it actually uses like the Laravel stuff to like go retrieve those values and do all the things that would normally do in the Laravel app. So you can do that as well. But then I think they also have like static caching. So it's like you get the Laravel version, but it also does really sort of aggressive static caching, which
Mm-hmm.
is I think how Eric Barnes is using it. So he has the control panel, so he can do things online without having to commit to the repo. But it caches everything statically for him. So the page remains really, really fast. And then there's also this thing called Gitamic. Like, so instead of like Statamic, it's Gitamic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like Tower for Statamic. So if you make changes or whatever, it'll show you like, here's your most recent changes. Do you want to add a commit? And it'll actually push right to the repo,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty crazy too.
Yeah.
So you still get the control panel feel, but then you get like it's all your stuff is still in version control, which feels really nice as well. Because that's the other thing is like you lose your database or something, now you're screwed, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's always this fear of like, what if the database doesn't get backed up, or what if like the host all of a sudden gets hosed, or the site gets hacked or whatever, and now everything's gone. It's like, well, I mean, not if you have a backup on Git. I mean, unless we're talking about worst case scenario, somebody actually really, really hacks you and gets
Yeah.
all your
Yeah.
repo credentials and
Everything.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of complex, like as far as that goes, but it doesn't have to be. Again, it can be very, very simple, but it sort of has the options to grow with you. You know, it's a really easy thing to get started with. Build step is super simple. But then if you want to take it to like another level, you can. You have the ability to do so. So it's been really good, man. The docs are also really well done. They're humorous, just like that's totally Jack McDade's
Yeah.
flavor, right? Like everything, there's like jokes through the entire thing. Um, which is so funny. So it's like entertaining to read the docs. Like you don't feel like you're like slogging through a technical manual, right? You feel like you're like talking to a friend who's kind of walking you through how this all works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So yeah, I mean, but there is a lot of documentation, a lot, just like there is in Laravel, right? I mean, if anything that's of any sort of like value is and has been around in version 3 now is right likely going to have some sort of um, there's going to be a lot to it, right? So I'm working my way through it. I'm still not 1000% convinced that's what I'm using, but I'm leaning that way. The other thing that I was kind of thinking about doing is they said like, hey, we're on a little bit of a timeline, and they're going from like their site went from originally like maybe like 6 to 10 pages to when this company redid it to like 40, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, it just feels like I'm completely lost. They said like I don't know where to even like I don't even know how to tell people where the content is, right? If you're a new person who's like just coming to the site to discover kind of what we do, like, it's been pretty enjoyable so far, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to digging in a little bit more.
Yeah. I might have a play around with the Statamic as well. This may be a better opportunity to sort of start. I mean, I kind of wanted to try
That'd be
something
cool
new.
because then we could kind of talk about it on the show.
Mm.
Honestly, like it would be cool to kind of like work at the same time
Yeah.
on it and sort of like our understanding of how it all works and stuff. I
Hmm.
actually messaged Jesse Light. Is that his name? Leet?
Jesse,
How do
yeah.
you say his name?
It's French, man. It's Jesse Leite.
Leite.
It's not.
Leite.
Yeah.
He's also like he's not like Yaz level troll, but he is pretty
He's up there.
he's trolly.
He's very
Yeah, he's
smart though
like a
because he
fun troll.
uses Vim. So
Oh yes, I mean yes, got to go there. He is a smart dude though, for sure, no doubt about it. So have been able to hang out with him a couple times at Laircon and things
mhm.
like that, but I was gonna message him and see if maybe he wanted to jump on the show with us tonight to talk about it a little bit because I'm sure he could clear up some of these things for me as well.
Yeah.
But didn't get a hold of him. Didn't get a hold. Maybe we can get Jack himself on the show. We'll see. We'll see.
Maybe.
He's in. He was fishing with Caleb Porzio this
I
weekend.
saw that. I
Or
saw
this
that he
week.
was
Yeah.
taking him around Florida and showing them the spots and having a good time. That Caleb kid, he's
That was
doing well
pretty
for
cool.
himself.
Yeah, Caleb's like a fishing man now. That's what he's doing these days.
It's
Like
fishing and towing
fishing trout.
and alpine and live wire. That's what he's doing.
Yes, indeed. And so he's been having a lot of really good success actually. He just got featured on GitHub README, which was awesome.
With his Keanu Reeves picture.
Yeah. I would have never even said that, but like now that you say that, that's so funny. It feels that is accurate. It feels accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Nicely done. But on Twitter, he caught a puffer fish.
Mm.
I think it's what they're called, right? Those little fish that like expand and
go,
whatever. Yeah, they blow up. Yeah, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of working on with Statamic. The other thing I was interested in talking about maybe, which I just kind of would like to bounce the ideas off you that we have about this. So I'll kind of give you the situation and what my proposed solution is kind of what we're doing so far, and you can tell me any potential pitfalls you might see in this approach. Okay. Ticketing systems, all right, so are typically made for things that are broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, this thing is not working anymore. It's supposed to be working. Can you please fix this? Right? That's ideally what they should be used for, I think. However, if you have no sort of method for people to request features for an app or for a thing, they inevitably either do one of two things. They will throw them into the ticketing solution, right? Which happens. And so your tickets, a ticket becomes something like, hey, we would really like to be able to get an email whenever there's a new, attorney general letter that we get from a person who complained about something or a Better Business Bureau or whatever, right? Like something like that. I mean, this is just a ridiculous example maybe, right? But like, that's the thing. Well, that's not like a fix. Nothing's broken, right? You're asking me to basically develop a whole new thing for you, right? Like, 'cause I don't know the process. There's a whole lot of discovery to be done around that. Like, number one, why are we getting these complaints? Like, how is this happening? Like, in what avenue is this coming in through? Whatever. So that's one way they kind of make their way in is these tickets. And the problem with that is like it looks like you have these really long-lived tickets that are not tickets. They're not broken, right? And so if you're running any sort of reporting, it looks horrible because you have this thing that's like been out there for 300 days or something, and it's it throws everything off. The other way that they'll talk to you about them is they'll like shoot you an email, which again, just sort of like, where do I put that? Like,
Trash.
or they'll send you a direct message. Yeah, it goes to the trash. Or you put it into like an issue, right? A backlog.
Mm.
So those are kind of sort of some of the problems that we've had, and I've tried to solve them before by like making an issue in GitHub on a repo, but then the issues just get so clogged, and there's
Mm.
no real way to like prioritize them, or like, are we even doing these, or is this just here so that we can evaluate it later and all that? So that was sort of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things said, what we did is, you may remember, I think it was last year, or maybe it was the year before, Jonathan Rennick, for his talk, did
Wants.
wants.
Mm-hmm.
Wants. So we actually grabbed the repo that he had out there and we finished it.
Mm-hmm.
So we just made it actually like usable. So you could put in new ones, like you'd get an email if somebody commented on yours, or you'd get a report like weekly that says, here's how many upvotes your particular want has, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to use it. So I've deployed it. And what I've done is I've said, okay, for any of these people who have tickets that were in this status of like, it was called on hold, I had on mine, like any of these tickets I have, which I have like 70 or 80 of them, they're just sitting there. Like, I'm sending these people a report saying like, hey, these are things that you asked for within the last year. If they're still relevant, go ahead and create a want for them, right? So like kind of putting the onus on them.
Yeah.
And then what I've done is I'm saying like, once a month we will review the most highly like almost like a demand score, right? Like comments count for more than likes, sort of deal. I think comments are worth 2, likes are worth 1, sort of deal.
Yeah.
So the ones that are most in demand, we will consider creating, right? So there's like a requested, a planned, and then a completed sort of status for each of these.
Yeah.
So that's the plan moving forward. I'm interested to see kind of what this will do. I think some of what it does is it allows the ideas to be vetted without me having to be involved and tell them they're either a good or a bad idea, because they have to sort of work for their own idea, right? They have to be the ones to pitch it to other people to get community support for their idea. Because if they don't, then it just sits there and never does anything, right? And I don't have to think about it at all because it never comes to the top of the list. So that's good. Like, that's a really good idea. So I don't have to be the one to kind of shoot their idea down anymore. It's like, if they can't get enough people excited about it to say anything about it, or to comment on it, or to ask any questions, or to give it a thumbs up, whatever, then doesn't matter. I don't have to do it, right? So thoughts. What do you think? Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? What are the pros? What are the cons?
Yeah, so my last, I joke about sending things to trash, but if something came to me out of the blue, I would just ignore it, because there was a process, right? It wasn't just anyone that could come up with stuff that they wanted, and it had to go through an escalation, had to go through their line manager, who would then bring it up with the other line managers, and then that would prioritize, and that would decide, what is actually worth us sort of spending the time to figure out if we want to do it or how we're going to do it, and then it would go in the backlog. So we used Jira, and so things went into the backlog to die, essentially, because there was no
like, truly, that's kind of what happened. Like, you didn't have a review process in place to go into the backlog and say, we're going to do these things. It's not like there was a lack of work to do, right?
Yeah, so we would go through once a week, and we would go like, here's this thing someone asked for 6 months ago, and they've never mentioned it again, so it's obviously not important. So it would get knocked off the back of the backlog. If someone mentioned it again, we'd kind of shift it up the backlog, but there was always like project work and stuff that had to be done at a higher level that kind of meant that a lot of stuff wasn't done. And so, it didn't really work. Then there was the ad hoc communications, where someone would send a message on Slack and they'd be like, what do you think about this thing? And I'm like, I don't know. If you need it, then you figure out, kind of thing. Because it's not my job to decide what you need, right? I can tell you technically whether or not it's possible or how much work it might involve. But at the end of the day, if you need something, then we're going to have to build it. It's just a matter of figuring out when and how we go about it. So,
right, exactly.
The job that I'm at now, they have like a feature forum, and they allow, it's basically wants. And what that allows you to do is you get like 6 points or 10 points, whatever, some number of points that you can spend per month on submitting, a new want or a new feature, and voting. on existing features.
Now, is this users
This is
or
our
is this
customers.
is users of your platform? Okay, your customers.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is the
Yeah.
customers of our platform, whether that be white label, reseller, end users. They can all log in and they can make a request. They can see the open ones and they can comment on it and things like that. But yeah, submitting and voting. So, and it's not like you can just come up with an idea on the toilet one day and just, yep, I'm going to put 10 of these up, or have, shower thoughts and things like that. So it's,
Sure.
you know, saying you can only spend X number of points kind of stops that
I like
backlog
that
of
idea.
feature requests from kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
going wild. And then you just end up with a backlog that's never going to get processed, because there's always going to be things that need to be done. As I said, the project work and the things that support the business and things like that. So, and just because it's in the feature forum and just because it's voted highly doesn't necessarily mean that it'll get done. It's just, this is what the users, broadly speaking, want. And so it's there. I suppose it's your job now, anyways, the head of IT, to like raise that with the other heads of the other departments and figure out, like, based
Right.
on what everyone needs, you still need to go through the process at that point. Like, this is kind of like the shape up process where you have to figure out your appetite is and figure
Right.
out
Exactly.
what the business actually wants to do. But typically I've never really kept a backlog. I follow the Jason Fried mentality of, like, if it's important, someone will bring it up again. And if we keep hearing about it from different people, then it's probably something that we need to investigate and spend
Yeah.
some time
Yeah,
on. So
exactly.
I think the wants thing is cool. I think that's a good way of sort of engaging with your users. It depends on your users. Like, it's an internal thing for the company, then it's easier to get everyone on board because they are using the software day in and day out, and they know what they need and how they want to go about doing it. And then, saying it's up to them to rally support for it also helps them understand whether or not it's an issue. Because if other people aren't experiencing it, then maybe it's not, maybe it comes down to an individual problem. That gets a bit tricky when you've got a department of one kind of thing. And so if there's only one person in a team, then things that affect them are not necessarily going to find welcoming ears to
Yeah,
help
no traction
vote.
on that. Yeah.
So that's something that you kind of need to figure out how to weight. So, our accounts receivable team at my last job was one person, right? So things that they asked for, whilst I agree they are urgent to them, everyone's got their number one priority, but the number one priorities amongst all the other departments and all the other teams and all of that kind of stuff, I kind of, they don't, and that's the thing, the feature forum or the wants thing kind of brings to light, is where they fit amongst all of the other feature requests in the business. Because you can
Yeah.
see what everyone else is, asking for and what everyone else is voting on and what the business sees as important. And so eventually, in that scenario, especially if you're going to constrain how often they can suggest things and how often they can vote on things, and, you've got to really think about whether or not you want to spend your allocated points for the month on, then it kind of,
An idea that you don't necessarily like or whatever. Yeah,
yeah.
sure.
It's
Like if
like,
your
I had
friend
this
just asks
idea.
you like, "Hey, it's a favor, can you do this?" Yeah.
Hmm.
That was the only con I had, was like there's the potential for gaming the system, right? If you just have someone, it's basically like it becomes a popularity contest if you
Mhm.
just, you know what I mean? At some point, like if somebody's like, "Hey, I really want to get this thing because I hate doing this every day. Like, would you mind like upvoting it for me,
Yeah,
whatever?"
I'll
Which
let you have my car parking
to a certain
space
extent,
on Tuesdays and Fridays
exactly. Yeah.
if you vote for this thing for me.
Advocate
So
for this.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So
I mean, literally, if it came down to that, I'd be like, "Psh, fine, I don't care." Like, you know what I mean? Like, if people really care that much about their particular idea, I don't know. Like, I'll be excited if they just use the thing.
yeah,
Like, I've got some people using it already, but like, I'll be just be happy to have a place where I can like almost like what you said, like put things to die. Like,
mm,
it's not a ticket. Like, it's not going to get work done right now. I'll review it sometime in the next month. Like,
yeah,
we'll look at any open ones that have activity on them, and we'll probably just decide not to work on most of them. But
yeah,
I have a place to put them now that's not a GitHub issue. Because
yeah.
for me, if it's a GitHub issue, it needs to get like
An issue
it's
is
an
something that you
idea. Like it's a
need.
fleshed out
Mm,
idea.
yeah, an issue is something that's ready to go, kind of thing. And we say that in open source all
Yes,
the time. If an
it's sort of
issue
been
is
already been shaped,
opened,
right?
yeah, if it gets to an issue and it hasn't really been thought out, or there's no description, it just gets closed, right? Try again
Correct.
when
Yeah,
you've got more
that's a good way to
information.
describe.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
putting it in the wants allows other people to sort of flesh it out. And then, as I said, you would then have to figure it out with your other heads. Like you could do it once a month with, your head of legal and your head of marketing and your head of sales and whatever else amongst all of the things. So you'd have to classify each thing, or just your users would need to be classified. So it's like, this is a sales thing, or this is a marketing thing, or this is an accounts thing, and go from there. And then each of the departments can see what is important to the people in them. And then you can sort of figure out in the business as a whole where that kind of goes. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's valuable. Like the wants thing, I always thought was kind of cool, but at the same time, never bothered to implement it because some of the wild ideas that came from the people that I used to work with
I
were
know.
just
I know.
like, that's
But
why
that
I say, like, it comes to my inbox, I'm like, why are you emailing me this? Please speak to your line manager, because they never would have let this come through, because it's just not a thing that's
yeah.
going to happen. And
Yeah.
the line managers were always good at sort of understanding, because they had an understanding of what their people were asking for. So if one person came to it, they'd be like, no worries. If two people came, they're like, all right, I'm going to write this down. And then once it gets to 3 or 4, it's like, if it's distinct people that are bringing it up, then perhaps it's something that needs to be addressed at a higher level. And
Yeah.
so you go from there. But it's,
Yeah, you do, and you do have some.
The thing that I always used to push back on, and I said it before, it's not my job to figure out what you need, and it's not my job to prioritize it. So if you're going to bring me 100 things a week that each person has asked for once, then none of it is going to get done, because I don't need to build 100 things for 100 people. I need to build one thing for
Yeah.
100 people. So yeah, I will happily do the requirements and help you figure out the specification, and try and figure out how long we think it's going to take, knowing full well that, like, when you say it's going to take a week, it might be a week of work, but that week could be spread over 4 weeks or 2 months or whatever else, because, depending on the urgency of it, it might not garner enough of your time and attention to get it done. So yeah, that stuff is kind of universal in terms of how it gets from someone's brain into some place where it can be discussed and then ultimately worked on. Is the thing. And I think the feature thing is cool. You don't want to use your issue tracker for
Correct. I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like I said,
Yeah,
with Jira,
it doesn't
we would
work.
periodically go through and just trash things. Like, this has been here for 6 months. Why is, it's obviously not important. It's not going to get done. The billing system is not working, issue. The billing system is throwing a 500 here, issue. Work, fix, send pull request, close issue kind of thing. Like, that kind of stuff is important. Sometimes if it's that kind of broken, you wouldn't even log an issue. You would just go, hey, I'm going to go and fix that. And then, so the issue is good for sort of historical tracking. So you can go back and it's kind of documenting the things that you have fixed over time. But because you can search issues.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
you can search pull requests, but like seeing the link.
It might not have the full, exactly.
Because the pull request
you're not
should
going to
say
have the full
what
discussion.
you fixed, yeah, but the issue should say what is broken, kind of thing. So, and for a feature request or a feature add-on or whatever, I would go straight to pull request. Even an issue, not necessarily for new stuff. An issue, especially in the context of GitHub, I think issues are more, this is broken, please help me understand, please help me fix, whatever. And then pull request is like, here is the code to fix that thing. Here is my attempt at fixing that thing. Here is my new feature kind of thing. And then that's a discussion on what you're doing to fix it, as opposed to what the problem is itself. And I think those two discussions should be separate.
Yeah, so like the way that we're kind of doing it right now is like, I typically will have, so I have like 3 sources of work. Like, one is a ticket, like one will be like these wants, like these user requests. Another one will be like management or upper level management or whatever, telling me, hey, these are things that, or, like I meet with like the operations teams and say, hey, what sort of things do we need to build? What are the things you're hearing from your people, whatever. So we have like the grassroots one, which is wants. You have the top level one coming down, which is like management. And then you have like tickets, which are like user reported errors and breakages, right? So we have that. So those are kind of like just scratch pad, sort of like I write that down sort of deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like these are things that need to happen, whatever. So typically where those go is those go into like Notion, or they go into a Basecamp list for me to like, these are things that we are going to do. They just need to be shaped better,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then I will shape those and create an issue. And in the issue, I will try and say, why are we doing this? Like, what's the context? Why does this matter? Because I don't just want to like assign, like, I don't want my guys and my developers to just feel like they're just doing the, like, they're actually doing the work that I've already thought everything through. It's just like, here's the context of the situation. Here's what we're trying to solve. Here's how we're proposing to solve it. And maybe here are some considerations you might want to make when you're writing the code. Like, we're going to be adding to this feature in the next month because this is not the end of this feature. This is just the start of this feature, right? So make sure that when you make this table, you make room so that it could become a polymorphic table in a while. Just consider that when you're building it, right? I'm not going to tell you how to structure the schema. I'm just telling you it's going to happen in the future. So just be aware, right? So those are kind of like what I'll put in the issue, and then they work from that to create their pull request, right? And then their pull request, and they typically don't describe the whole thing in the pull request, like what they're trying to solve. They'll basically just write any relevant details in the pull request of like things that I would need to know about what needs to happen when we're pushing this into production, or things to be aware of. Or a lot of times they'll put screenshots of the actual completed feature in the pull request, or an MP4 of a screen recording or a GIF of the thing working. And so that's kind of the flow that we use, as well as any env variables that need added. Those go in the very, very top of the pull request. So I see those when I'm getting ready to push to production. But yeah, that's kind of how our flow works, and it's worked pretty well. So yeah, I think it's just kind of like one more piece.
I think the biggest thing that's going to help you would be consolidating where you're doing these things. So not having Notion and Basecamp and Once and GitHub, because then you just
that's true. I know
all of those things are good for their own things, but like spreading things out just makes it difficult to keep track of everything. And I know that like the Tailwind team, they've gone all in on Basecamp to do their stuff and just keeping everything.
So do they not do issues? I wonder. Like, I wonder if they don't do issues.
I'm sure they still have issues, but like Basecamp is where they do all their discussion and things, like all of their internal stuff as well. So,
that's interesting. So maybe I would like stop using issues and just start using Basecamp, I guess.
Yeah, either or. Yeah. I mean, if everyone's got access to Basecamp, then it makes sense, because if everyone has access to, because it's what, $99 a month or whatever for
we have Basecamp for the entire organization. Yeah.
So everyone has access to that, whereas GitHub you're going to limit just to your development team, so it makes it difficult, because then you're discussing things in Basecamp and then you've got to pull relevant stuff out of Basecamp and put it into issues, and the people that are like raising those issues ultimately lose visibility over them. They don't know what's happening, and they it makes it difficult to clarify, because then someone's playing middle person to, I'm going to go over here and figure out what did they say there, and then I have to translate it into the issue. And then if you get that wrong, then it just extends the whole review process and getting that issue fixed ultimately. So yeah, trying to keep as much of it in one place as possible is good. I mean, I use Notion myself at the last place, but just to keep notes on like how to configure a server or how to do all this stuff, like things that would help me specifically, not necessarily the business things. And then the business is on board with Basecamp, so I would try and keep as much of the discussion in one place as possible that everyone across the business can see. Having said that, and then the wants thing is kind of an add-on to that. So if you could find some way to make it work, I've never used Basecamp to any degree of competency, so I don't know if that's something that you could kind of build in there as part of the functionality, or if if you want to be careful about maintaining that separately.
Yeah, there's an API, so like you could totally like, I'm sure there's a integration for, maybe not for Laravel, but there's like a PHP one. I'm sure there's a SDK or something to make it easy.
That's something to keep mindful of. But yeah,
cool. That's a good advice.
Something. Yeah, let me know where you land on it, how you want to go. The feature forum, certainly limiting people's ability to just endlessly comment and log things will stop that from getting out of hand, because it means they really need to think, what is the one thing that I desperately want to see this month, and what are the 2 things or 3 things that I desperately want to vote on and see added that I haven't thought of. Otherwise it's just going to become a dumping ground, and for you're just going to see it as a dumping ground. You're going to start closing stuff, deleting stuff, ignoring stuff. And for everyone else, they're going to say, well, this is just sitting here, never actioned, never looked at, never, it's been deleted or closed. And so they're just going to not use it, because they just see it as a dumping ground that's like we're offering it to you, but we're not going to pay attention to it because they don't see that it's unwieldy, that there's like 1,000 things in there. They just see that, oh, we log stuff in here and it just gets ignored. So that's something to certainly be mindful of.
Yep, that's a good point. Okay, my friend. Well, that's we're at 50 minutes, so I'm gonna say we wrap this bad boy up and call it a night.
Let's wrap it. Let's talk about our friends at WorkVivo, who, believe it or not, are still sponsoring the show. So WorkVivo, who are at workvivo.com, are an employee communication platform to excite, engage, and connect your entire company. They combine the power of a social network, an intranet, and employee app into one familiar digital experience that all of your employees will love. It's an employee app that reaches the places that email can't. They put engaging communications in the hands of every employee, regardless of role or location, through a fully branded employee app. Maybe you should look at this, Jake, as a tool for your place of business.
Yeah, I've had calls with them actually, about their product, and it's really, really cool. Yeah, I think it's not that we're too small for it. I think I would have to have another person to manage it, and I don't have that person right now. It is an awesome product, though. I'll tell you that. Like, I think it would meet a lot of needs that we have, and actually would consolidate a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. But we didn't pull the trigger yet. We'll see. Maybe we will someday.
Yeah. Increase your employee engagement, internal communication, help with remote working, and culture amplification. Oh, they deal with leadership and crisis communication, improve your collaboration, and also have secure and scalable communications across your entire business. Be sure to check out WorkVivo at workvivo.com. Thanks to our friends there, and thanks especially to Joe Lennon, who has been a staunch supporter of the podcast for a number of years. And sometimes, we like to let everyone know about their wonderful wares. They've got a new website as well since the last time I looked. So
they do. I was just looking at it. It looks great. It's really, really nice.
It's fresh. I bet you it's Tailwind, because why wouldn't it be Tailwind? Maybe it's not. Never mind that. Move on.
Boy,
it's a good website. They're good people, and Joe's always been a friend of the show, so definitely check them out if that is something that you're looking at, and speak to Jake about it, because he's had some experience with it.
Indeed, I have. Indeed. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This was episode 90. You can find show notes for this episode at northmeetsouth.audio/90. Hit us up on Twitter if you have any questions, at Jacob Bennett, at Michael Dorinda. And then, of course, rate this podcast up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Bye.